not that you need an introduction, but the Craig Harrison sitting with me today. I appreciate you coming out.
You make me bigger than I am.
Well, that's part of the role, right?
Exactly.
The forces come together. So what we're trying to accomplish is, like you and I have had conversations, and I think focusing on life evolutions, right? Like those disruptive things that come into our life, and we can either retract or we can weigh and accept. And I know that your history has had some
as soon as
changes.
when we were having lunch that day and you brought up this whole evolutionary thing, and you just said something very interesting to me, that, when things happen, or, sometimes we think they're problems. They're actually gifts. I mean, in our evolution, I think most people grow through even suffering. I mean, I think the worst part is our culture today says, don't ever suffer, take a pill, where it's grinding through the pain and grinding through people who go through death, divorce, financial devastation, courts, all these things. You have two choices.
Right.
You either resist it and life gets very hard and very ugly for a very long time, or you embrace it and you work through the pain and you become a better, stronger person.
And I think that's one of the things that people need to understand, just the human psyche, right? When something like that happens, there is a natural grieving process that you need to go through to get to that acceptance, right?
Well, and we grieve. People always think grief and death. I work a lot with mothers who lost all their children at one time. It's a very devastating. Talked to one yesterday. Her 3 children died in a fire with her mother. And you wonder, like, how do you recover and grieve? That is a unique kind of grief, death. But there's grief in turning 50. There's grief in your children moving out of the house. There's I'm going to be 65. There's a little grief there, like, oh my God, my grandson's 8 years old, came home from Catholic school and said, Pop, I have to interview you. And I go, oh, great. What is it about? And he goes, I got to interview a senior citizen. I was like, oh, crap.
Let me see if I can find one for you.
I'm like, I didn't become one. So
how did that happen?
But when you start identifying the grief in your life, when you start identifying what you're struggling with, the changes, that's where growth comes. And that's the exciting part. That gets to be like, I'm alive. I'm going. Look where I'm at. What am I doing? What did I survive?
Yeah, exactly. How did I make it through that? So I think one of the things that we talked about that's interesting is that you have to be ready to move on, right? You have to, however long that takes, but at some point you have to decide, okay, what do I do? Do I stay in this state, or do I start working on me?
Sometimes you don't even get the choice. I created this chart one time for couples getting married.
Right.
And it's called, it said, Father Craig's Theory of Life. I was a Catholic priest, 35 years. So it says up here, joy, happiness, this. Right. And everybody wants to be there. But that's not how life works. Right. And then as you come this side, it says life. And this is dealing with day-to-day stuff, relationships, and down here is death. And this is also spiritual, because we look, for example, as a Christian, we would say the life of Christ to the death, this, to the growth and the resurrection. Right. So in this cycle of life, people think that the goal is to always be happy and joyful. Right. The only way you can live there is if you're on drugs. Right. The normal person can't stay here. And the goal is to keep going through the cycle of life and learning the lessons and going through it. And that death part, some people will stay in there for a long time.
Right. Get stuck.
And what they need is that someone or something, or they get tired of it and they kickstart into the growth and learning about self and letting go. And then they come up and they have that moment of, aha. Yeah. And the goal then is to say, now I'm ready for another lesson. Right. So that death part is what you're talking about. Right. It's like, I haven't changed. I'm 300. I've struggled with weight my whole life. I'm 325 pounds. Uh-oh. Right. I'm tired of this. One day I'm laying on the couch. My grandson climbs up on and he goes, Papa, I love to climb the mountain. And he was talking about my stomach. And I go, that's it. Got to lose weight. So something triggers us.
Yeah.
And we grow.
Right.
And I've watched you in your life. I've known you for many years.
Right.
watch in your life, go, I didn't count on this. This isn't what I thought my dream was.
Right.
But I needed it to get where I am today, to elevate. So,
and that's the goal that we want to get out there, is understanding that that is part of life. I think the other interesting part to me is this, like we discussed, people get in this, oh, it's meant to be, right? So from the Christian perspective, I see two different paths, right? You got, oh, I'm blessed, or, oh, I got dealt a bad hand. Instead of realizing, oh, it's just God's plan, right?
Well, and people want to use God from choices that they've made, and then, blame God for everything. And I live in the philosophy that our Creator created life, and then we participate in it. And, why do children little kids get cancer? I can't explain any of that. All I know is everything in life has purpose and meaning. And when you struggle to fight the current, I remember one time we were at the Kern River, and I wouldn't recommend anybody doing this, but in our day we were tubing down.
Yeah, lower current maybe.
And then we were swimming up, and I was going against a current, and it's hard. I was a swimmer in high school. We'd swim across we'd go out to the ocean and swim, and every once in a while we'd get in a tide and a pool, and you just couldn't do it, and you're fighting it. And then I've been on the Kern River in an inner tube with my hands back and maybe a beer and just floating down with the current. When we fight it and resist it, it takes us a long time. Right. And so I always tell people that death part, you got to learn to swoosh. Okay, Lord, what's the lesson you want me to learn? Right. Whew, I'm ready to grow.
Yeah, and I think part of it's that when people pray, right, I always say, be careful, right? There's two parts of it. Be careful what you ask for, because you might get it. And the other part is, when's the answer come? Right?
I prayed as a priest, I would always pray, God, keep me humble.
Right.
And he did.
So, he found a new way to do it.
Damn it, I picked the wrong, but sometimes, ego, and a lot of what we talk about, you and I, about, has to do with ego.
Right.
And sometimes our ego needs to be put in place. And sometimes, we tend to think we have more control and power over other people. You have children.
Right.
I have adopted. I have 8.
Yeah.
I have 19 grandkids. I've tried control. It doesn't work. The good thing when you adopt children is anything they do wrong, you can blame on their biological parents. I don't know what you do.
Blame it on the other half.
Oh, good.
Sorry.
Good answer.
Sorry you had a poor end of the gene pool. That must be your side, right?
But see, I think that's one of the things that really excited me, Tim, with talking to you in general, is this passion you have for life and a passion to help other people experience life. It's what I want too. It's at this stage in my life at 65, I'm like, I'm past midlife. These are the last whatever years I have, and I want to spend them peacefully, present in the moment. I don't want drama in my life. And when you raise 8 kids and you're a pastor of a large parish, and you're working with politics and all this stuff, a lot of drama. And today, just today, driving over here, I thought, wow. I had yoga this morning. I did a marriage mediation. I saw one client that lost some children. And I'm driving over here and I thought, wow. You said earlier, I'm blessed. I choose gratitude.
Right.
I was sitting driving going, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity that 2 people that care about people and love people could maybe share energy and love and maybe help people through their time.
Yeah, and I think that's that ripple effect, right? And that's what I've seen you do is you never know where the ripples are going to go. But if you don't actually make the first splash, there is no ripples, right?
Right. Looking at your life.
Yeah. And then where do you want it to go? And I think in that is we've talked about it several times that one of my favorite parables is the parable of talents, right? So whenever somebody tells me oh, this is God's plan for my life, it's like, well, God gave you talents. Now it's up to you to use those to reward Him. right?
And
Instead of
what if God changes his mind and says, I want you to marry this person,
right.
and I want you to have these kids, but the marriage wasn't intended to last for eternity.
Right.
It was part of his plan that those children come into the world.
Right.
You know, I work a lot, I said, with death. I mean, I probably have, I would imagine I've buried a couple thousand people in these 35 years. And that transition, what do you believe in? Do you believe, you know, about this person that died? Do you believe that you're going to ever be connected to their soul again,
Right.
their energy? Yeah. And I really love them. I want that again. Right. Well, I have that vision that, yeah, that's how it's going to be. And this life, it's, even the Bible, I laugh sometimes at the Bible. People always ask me Christian questions, and they'll say, well, how does it work? And I said, well, it says in the scriptures, before you were born, I knew you. You were an energy, a vibration, a frequency, a soul. It's all the same thing. Mm-hmm. And he said, then I knit you in your mother's womb. I figured a time and place where I was going to bring you into the world. He didn't say I gave you the best parents, or I did this, or you weren't supposed to be adopted. He goes, I brought you your energy, your soul in a human form. He says you'll live to be 70 or 80, the Bible says, 70 or 80, and most of these will be filled with sorrow and pain. Why? Because life is a learning grid. But I also believe, and when we die, all that happens is that energy, that frequency, that soul leaves this physical being, this physical body, which we don't need anymore, and it's released into, we might call it heaven or however it works. I don't know, I haven't been there yet. And I think we'll connect with all that we've loved, and we will connect, and God is love, and we'll connect with God. I don't know all the details, but I'm willing to invest energy and hope. And so to me then, what's the goal? The goal is whatever you suffer with, whatever ripples come your way, whatever storms come, sit still and trust that it is what it is, and walk through it.
Yeah, and I've seen you several times speak, but one of the things I like is that being still, being calm. And I think it's better in this modern era. When I pray, I have to stop myself and tell myself, okay, shut up and listen.
Why? Because you got that brain. He's got the squirrel brain. The ADHD. He's going. And that's one of the beautiful things. So you're one of the people that I believe have taken, because ADHD, taken this kind of brain very quick and moved it into a creative way to build and to help people and do this. So I get tired when people say, well, I can't because I've got this issue. And when you slow your brain down and you breathe and you get present, amazing things happen. And trying to get our world today, we're so connected to our phones, we're so connected to, movement. Everything's in a hurry. Getting people to slow down. Breathe. And prayer becomes a breath. I was just reading an article. You might like this. So the Hebrew word for God is Yahweh. And Jews don't even say the word. They can't allow it to come out of their mouth. They don't even write it. They just use the consonants. But the study is done by these physicists and others that breathing is actually the word Yahweh. It's in other words, our inner God, the God within us, the great I am in us, is actually our breath, which is our creation. And so when we take time to breathe, and I was like fascinated with this. I'm going,
it's one of those, how old were you the day that you found that out?
Nobody told me I'm 65. I wasted a bunch of years. I was always going.
Where'd they go?
I was always going.
Just trying to get it out. Oh, God. Can I give you breath? Especially when you get, I don't know why this popped in my head, but when you get the wind knocked out of you.
Oh.
What an eternity that is until you catch your breath again.
Exactly.
And that panic that sets in.
And why do so many people today have panic attacks and anxiety attacks? Because they're instead of their brain, I was reading this article from Stanford that the average brain has 80,000 thoughts a day. Now you might take an ADHD, or you probably have 110,000. We don't think the thoughts; they pop in our head. Something you see stimulates it. I walked into your room upstairs that you created for your grandkids, and it's an amazing room. It's Disney. It's all this stuff, and I, for a moment, triggered back to my childhood.
Oh, wow.
And then when I saw your action figures in your movie room, and I'm going like, oh my gosh, and that trigger brought thoughts. Oh. Well, when you get this many thoughts during the day, predominantly they're negative.
Right.
And positive thoughts stick in our head. This was in the article, like Teflon. You get a positive thought and it just slides off and goes out. You get a negative thought in your head and it sticks like Velcro. Oh, and stuck, yeah. So you start thinking that negative thought. The more you think that negative thought, this could happen. What if I have a heart attack? What if I'm doing this? Oh, what if that doesn't go through? What if my job interview? And you build that negative thinking. Mm-hmm. Your thinking starts changing your physical. Oh, yeah. Your psychological, and the next thing you know, you're depressed, or my leg hurts, my back hurts. Mm-hmm. And how do we teach people to come back to that centered?
Yeah, and I think you're right. That in this day and age, it's harder than ever because there's constant distractions. Our phones, internet, social media.
You get news like this, and then everybody's talking we're going to get a big storm. Well, it used to be when we grew up, it rained, it snowed, it's a storm. Now it's almost a tension building up, and who knows what we're going to get, but we get scared and nervous, and we build that tension, and I think it's dangerous. One of the things I love every day when I wake up, I like to get up at 2 a.m. every morning. That's when I wake up, shower, get ready, do some meditation. Try to work out. I hate working out. We'll talk about that. If my trainer doesn't come, I go out for donuts.
It's a form of training, right? Yeah. But, you can make anything.
But positive. I wake up and I put those feet on the ground, and I like to quote Maya Angelou, poet, African-American poet, died not too long ago. She said, "Today is the most wonderful day. I've never had this one before." Mm-hmm. My old thinking would say, oh my God, it's only Thursday. I got all these appointments. Yeah. What about then? I can't wait till Sunday when I'm off, whatever. Right. No, but I go.
So how did you come to that? Because there is a lot of research about that. Like when waking up in the morning, what habits do you have? And when I catch myself, when the first thing I do in the morning is go into my email. Yeah. And just as instead of taking that time to relax.
This is the same kind of discipline. You do the physical therapy. If somebody comes in and does their physical therapy right, you see them heal. Right. If they do it I almost said it wrong, haphazardly, then you would say they don't heal. So I was tired of being tired and dredging the day and going, I can't wait till 6 o'clock when I'm done. Then I'm going to pray. Then I'm going to meditate. Then I'm going to relax. And it never would happen. Mm-hmm. So now I'm extremely disciplined. 2 o'clock, get up. I stand at my bed. I stretch for a second. I say my little, today's the most wonderful day. I've never had this before. I get in, I take a hot shower, and then I take a cold shower. Right. And I'm awake. I go down, my coffee's ready. I have 1 cup of coffee. I go in my room, I do my meditation and prayer. I know what everybody in the neighborhood does, because my meditation has a big window looking out. Right. And I'm like, gosh, John's a little late for work today. He's like 5 minutes late. I do it, and then about 5 o'clock, I allow myself to pick up my phone. Mm-hmm. What am I doing today? And then I try to bring that to prayer. I try to say, okay, help me to be present to each person. Mm-hmm. Help me not thinking about the next thing. Help me say, and then I go in and I start my day, and I'll get out of whack again. I'll be talking to somebody and I'm distracted. My brain is going, oh, you need to get the garbage cans out because today's pickup day. Yeah. And I come back, Craig, breathe. Okay, focus,
Right.
listen. And I wouldn't say I'm perfect. I'm perfect in this way. My morning routine, it doesn't matter. One night, a couple weeks ago, somebody called me, or 2 weeks ago, called me and said their dad just had a heart attack. They're out of town. Family wasn't here. He's on his way to the hospital. I went, sat with him, went with the doctors and this. So I never went to bed. But the next day, I said, nope, get up at 2. But tonight, I'm going to bed at 7 instead of 8:30. I'm going to get my sleep. I think sleep's essential. So practicing these things, I feel I've retrained my brain. And I mean, by practicing it every day for a period of time, I'm on year 4 of everyday practice. Now I'm working on the negative thinking.
Right.
I'm sitting there and all of a sudden I get a negative thinking, a trauma or something comes to my mind. I start getting angry. And then I go, wait a minute, Craig. I kind of step outside, talk to myself. You know, I used to make fun of like homeless people when they're talking to themselves walking around the street.
Right.
And now I talk to myself all the time. But I say, Craig, that's a thought, right? I don't want to think about that right now. I don't need to think about right now. Craig, just let it go. What do I want to think about? I'm going to go to this. And I'm trying to get my brain, I think I went from 10 minutes of negative thinking to I'm now down to about 1 minute of dwelling on it and then getting back into what am I doing?
Right. But I think that's a key, right? It's just like with grief and death, negative thoughts will come. And it's what do we do with them, right? And people get that, I don't want to have any more negative thoughts. That's not, it's an unattainable goal.
Always have them. Do you think somebody isn't going to have the thought, my wife died, or she's not here, or I used to have coffee with her every morning? No, that thought will come. What do you do with the thought? Hey, bring her a present. Honey, I miss you right now. I'm thinking of you. Get in touch with whatever emotion you have. If you're angry, okay, what am I angry at? Who am I angry at?
Right.
Why? Okay, I'm angry. Thank you. I experienced that. Let it go.
Yeah.
Get back to what we're doing.
Yeah, because it's like compounding interest, right?
That's a good, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that.
Your negative thoughts will compound and your positive thoughts can compound. And I think that my newest evolution since my divorce was, wait a second, what happened? Go through the process. And then I start thinking, who are you authentically? What are the things you enjoy? What are the things you put away during your marriage because just trying to get along? And then reverse that into, okay, like when I start working with coaching people, I'll say, let's talk about your negative things first. What is it you don't like to do?
Exactly what I do too.
And then once they finish it, I'm like, okay, now I want you to flip every one of these over to a positive. Like what is because the more you think about this, the more you think on this negative side without flipping it to, okay, how do I make that a positive?
Well, and I think that's a valuable tool. I use that too with clients. But I use it on myself too.
Oh, yeah.
Constantly going. I was an active priest for 35 years.
Right.
In religious life, you're kind of taught that you don't exist anymore. In fact, when people became priests and nuns, they gave up their name and they took on another name. And I'm Sister Mary Angelica. Well, her real name might have been Rebecca.
Right.
But the idea was you lose your identity. So now I'm 60 years old, and I make the choice to leave active ministry, and I'm like, who in the hell am I? Right. I don't even know who Craig is.
Right.
And here I'm in a community. I went through a very dark time.
Right. The
resurrection of it, and still today, I love getting to know who I am. Mm-hmm. I love hearing my name. I was Father Craig, Monsignor Craig. I like hearing sometimes Craig.
Right.
I'm Craig. I feel like I have risen above my titles to now my testimony.
Right.
Who am I today? When you said that question, I go, every day, Craig, who are you today? What choices are you going to make to rise above?
Yeah.
How are you going to change behaviors?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and I think it's that. because you see constantly on social media and the news all the negative in the world, so it's easy to weigh you down. But it's okay, yeah, acknowledge, yeah, that stuff's happening, but I don't have to dwell in it. I can say, what positive change can I make today?
Well, and I mean, probably even worse at that is I don't listen to the news, watch the news. I don't get the paper, though I have it on my iPad, and I'll skim through. And what I do is I want to be educated to know what's going on in the world, but I would rather bring a positive energy into that world. For example, in Bakersfield, we have a big homeless problem, as most communities do. So instead of, to me, if you are going to complain about something, then you better do an action. So I'm on the board at St. Vincent de Paul, and my goal is I will contribute energy, time, money into the problem versus just complaining all the time. Why are these people, blah, blah, blah. And that would happen to the war in Ukraine, anything. What can I do? First of all, I want to know what's the truth with everything, which is hard to find. But then it's like, how do I do that? How do I become a light amidst the darkness? How do I bring up, I'm about vibration. How do I bring a positive vibration into this world? Because that ripple effect you talk about, you drop a little pebble in the water and it goes out. I believe our energy can do that. I actually think that was the power that Jesus had. He channeled the power of God. He was God. And that light, that energy, wherever he went, people were drawn to that vibration, that light, because it's pure and good and holy. And when we allow that in us, we draw that. And then we have to renew ours too. That's the other problem, because I watch your schedule and mine, and we're invited to 1 billion fundraisers, and then they want us on boards, and we're always doing it, and saying no is not our norm. But when we do that, what I call sacred pause, where we pull back and we go, you know what, let me get back to you in a few days. I need to think about this, need to talk to a few people. Everybody should have a life coach in my life. Everybody should have a life coach. Everybody should have a spiritual director. You should have somebody that you go, hey, help me to discern what's going on. And then we make good choices.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's part of the whole thing. And one of the things I know we've talked about too is when certain people walk into rooms, right? And I know that you're one of the lights that walk into a room, and people want to come up and say hi. They want to come see what's going on. They want to be close to that. And you juxtapose that to the Eeyores of the world, right? The negative people walk in, and how many people are like, oh, look, I got to go over here and do this.
Or while they're talking to you, they're looking over your shoulder to see somebody more interesting to talk to. I see that. In fact, I had that experience the other day. It was I haven't had this that I can remember in years, but I went into Will Growers, Bass restaurant here in Bakersfield, and I go in and I see some people over here as I'm walking in with a friend, and I said, oh, it's good to see the blank blank family here. And the kids look at me and they're like, and the father, who I guess doesn't like me at all, has disdain for me, turned down and he goes, blah, 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 just this negative energy. And I walked past and I sat down in my seat and I said, okay, you just felt that boomerang of negative energy hit, and I go, let it go, Craig. And as I walked out, the two kids who I had in school way back, and now they're adults with their own kids, came over and they were like shaking my hand, giving me a hug, and they're like, yeah, I'm sorry. My dad is a jerk. He's just, and I go, it's okay. It's all okay. I'm okay. But sometimes you get those, and how about a day when you get multiple?
Oh, yeah.
When nothing seems to be going right. Every appointment's late. You can't, nothing works.
It's like nonstop.
It's like you say, I can't wait till this day's over. And we all get those. But that's part of that life cycle.
It's
how do you deal with that bad day?
And I think it's so we had, speaking of that, a couple of weeks ago, we had our pool building down on Westwind, the roof collapsed.
I saw that picture.
So I get the call 7:30 at night, and we're hanging out watching TV, and my CEO calls me and goes, hey, Just want to let you know the roof collapsed. We got it under control. Fire's here. Power's off. We're working on it. And I was talking to Wendy, my girlfriend, and she's like, told her, and she's like, oh, do we need to go down there? Do you need to go down there? I was like, no. She's like, you don't want to go down there? I was like, hey, the hole's still going to be there tomorrow. There's nothing more I can do right now. I don't need to jump into my car, race across town. It's under control.
Look at that is very different of how you would have responded years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Because of your own personal elevation.
Right.
I had a client that was over a couple days ago, and he has anger issues, and he bar fights, and he's probably 38 years old. He's got a couple kids, different mothers, so there's always fighting, and I'm working with him on mind work and this and prayer, and he told me, he said, you're not going to believe what happened. He goes, what? And he goes, he met a woman that he likes, and she lives in LA or whatever, so he said, we agreed to meet halfway to have dinner. He says, I'm driving in my truck, and he's very possessive of his stuff and this, and he goes, and it started snowing on the grapevine, and he said, another truck came past me real fast, hit me, and we hit, and spun, and he goes, you know me, my norm would have been get out of that car, grab him out of the car, and beat the crap out of him.
Somebody's getting hurt.
He goes, I sat in the car, and I practiced my breathing, and I got out and said, are you guys okay? Yes, the guy said, I'm really sorry. He goes, well, yeah, it's snowing. You probably shouldn't have been driving as fast as you were. He goes, it just is what it is. He said, I sat there, highway patrol came, couldn't even shut my truck door. And I said, I'm going to go have dinner with this woman. He said, I tied my door, drove down, snow coming in through the door. He said, I didn't fight. I got there, had a wonderful dinner. And I thought, he goes, look at me. You know I would have been different. That's the elevation that we want.
Right. And I think we constantly need to grow, and I think you're right on. And we don't know when the disruptions are going to come.
No, in fact, that living in the present moment, being here, it's like, and not, we got to stop entitling that what happened to me is bad. Right. It isn't necessarily bad. The roof caved in. Maybe it's a blessing because it didn't cave in when some special needs kids were in it.
Absolutely.
And do that because you work with all of this. Yeah. So I'm looking and going like, hey, in the scheme of things, it's a roof.
Right. Yeah, and that's what my response was. I went the next day and I was like, yeah, it's a mess. But thankfully, after hours, I mean, if something bad had to happen, it's the perfect time for a bad thing to happen.
Right. And guess what? Now we know we have a bad roof. And guess what? If it's meant to be, we'll fix the roof. We'll be back into it. But I think knowing you from before and knowing you now, I would have said you would have gone there that night. You'd have been all upset. You'd have been not sleep. And the next day you would take it out on everybody because it's all business. And here you were like, no, I don't even need to go see it.
And it's one of those things where you say, oh, God's punishing me for something. No. It was a weakness in the roof. It rained.
But look what our brains do. Right. Like God's punishing you. Right. No, it's like it's life.
Right.
It's day to day. That car accident that he had, guess what? It happened. You could have jumped out and thought, but you didn't. And look at how you've grown. Right. So when we look back and say, I'm a different man today, and I want to be a different man than I was yesterday. I hope I learned a lesson yesterday.
And who are you now attracting versus what you used to attract, right? Like I totally agree with you on that. After my divorce, I was like, what I really want is peace and no chaos. Just I want to know what it feels like to wake up during the day and not have to walk on eggshells, not worry about stepping on the landmines. So I put a lot of time and effort and worked with a coach to say, hey, what is it who do you really want to be? And I think like the anger thing, it's like, I heard a psychologist talk about one time that when we get angry, our IQ drops 30
It does. It does. Yeah.
So we go into our reptilian brain of fight or flight. You're not your authentic self at that time, right? You're just this animalistic ball of anger. Is that really how you want to show up? And and the other thing, like talking about divorce is, what do you want to show? What do you want to demonstrate to your kids? Is it better? I mean, not that I'm an advocate for divorce, but if it's unhealthy, and you're teaching your kids those unhealthy habits.
And that's why I always say when I do mediations, you guys, you're still teaching your kids lessons. Love, respect, safety. Guess what? You better figure it out because you're still the parents and you're going to be the grandparents. And you're not going to say, well, oh, we're going to have a birthday party, but we can't invite dad when mom's there because they can't be in the same area. And sometimes it takes years to get to that point. You know, you brought up a good point too, that reptilian mind. You know, basically in life we get a thought, and like I told you, we didn't create the thought. The thought pops in our head. Then we create an emotion to it, and then there's an action. So if all of a sudden you say or do something I don't like, thought, I don't like that, he's being disrespectful, whatever. The emotion is anger, and then it can be anything. I'm going to fight, flight, whatever. If we get back and change the thought, then we can attach an appropriate emotion. My thought is that I'm going to choose not to think that. I'm going to let that go. Pick your battles, you know. But every once in a while, we got to be honest. You know, there's a day I'm tired. I just didn't get solid sleep. I react different. I do more kind of in the moment reaction, and it's not my best. And then I got to look and say, okay, you failed on that one, but the next one, get there. And I think, you know, you start off on a bad day, and I know we've all had those, just bad day. I was going to say bad hair day, but I didn't want to insult you.
Yeah, I don't have those.
So I thought, you know, you start out on a bad day, but I really believe there's no such thing as a bad day. You're out of sync, then guess what? Stop and get yourself back in sync. And then guess what? You haven't wasted the whole day versus complaining about everything.
And one of the things that I've heard you talk about several times is sacred interruptions.
It's my favorite
It's a new way of reviewing. Something happens. You can look at it as, oh, great, my day's ruined. Or you'd be like, all right.
Yeah, driving here, if I had a flat tire, oh my gosh, and I've got a schedule and appointment. What if it's just, is what it is? I have choices. Call AAA, call Uber, go do what you got to do. But the minute, and that's why I like to call them sacred interruptions, because I think God, our creator, allows life to happen and allows all of this to go, and he likes to watch us to say, I'm not God. I'm not in control of everything and my schedule and my time. Man plans, God laughs, you know, the thing. And so sometimes it's like, that's just an exercise in me of self-control. I used to get mad at that. I watched myself the other day. I was taught this by my life coach that I was at the Vaughn's, 5 a.m. I like to go in the morning. So there's like 6 people, only one open, 6 people in line. And the lady in the very front has a food cart, which I'm okay. That's, you know, if she might be a single mom with 3 kids and she needs groceries and that's what welfare, I'm all for it. The problem was there were people in front of me and she had too much and not enough on the card and they were taking things out and redoing it. And then the person behind them turns and go, isn't this ridiculous? This is where our government money goes. And it was loud enough I could hear it. And I felt this negative vibration coming all the way back. And then I was just about ready to go, man, I came here early so I could get done. And my brain's going, and I go, stop. And he said, be grateful. And I said, okay, Lord, I am grateful at this moment that I have available foods that I like, healthy foods. I'm grateful that I can drive my car and park and walk in and get them. I'm not in a village walking miles to get porridge. I'm grateful that I can stand and push this cart. I'm grateful that there's people working here to serve me. And by the time I got up, I started looking there, and I had told the people behind me, I go, and I started talking out loud, and I'm going, isn't this a great day? And they started throwing negative. And by the time I came up, the cashier looked at me and I go, you know what? You are just an amazing person. You handle all these personalities. Thank you. And she goes, you know, you just made my day. We could be standing in line and we can change the vibration of the world like kindness and love and
simple
light.
things.
And I thought, I did it.
Yeah.
I created now for her and the other people in line, and hopefully somebody else does that.
Right. Yeah, that popped in my. So my mom was a checker for 52 years, and you'd go in her store, and she had the moniker. She was the sticker lady. She would keep stickers behind her cash register, and whenever a kid came through, she would give each kid a sticker on their shirt. You'd go into the store, there would be 6 check stands open and one long line
At your mom.
hers. And the kids would not, the parents would be like, hey, no.
I also think we're drawn to that.
Right.
We don't even know why. Why do I want to go? I want to go to this restaurant because when I go there, I have a good vibe. It says, why would you want to go to a place? It could be the best food in the world if I'm not feeling this vibration. And a waiter, a server, I was out the other day pulling the garbage cans out, and the garbage crew came, and I was out there, and for 2-3 minutes, we were out in the alley, and I had a cup of coffee for all of them. I wouldn't say, I maybe do this once every couple months, but I had a little tray there, and they pull up, and I go out there and I go, hey, got you guys a coffee? You did? And they were thankful, and I felt like we just connected for minutes. We can change the world.
Right.
One person at a time.
Yeah, those little acts that people don't expect to see. That's something I do on a fairly regular basis. If I'm out eating somewhere and I see an elderly person eating alone, or a single parent with a couple kids, I'll tell them, hey, send over some ice cream, or I'll pick up their tab.
See?
And I don't want it.
No, you're not saying, look at me.
Oh, yeah.
What you're really saying is, I'm spending kind of, I had it happen once, and I see it on Facebook, where I was at Starbucks in line, and the person in front of me paid for mine, and I get up there, and they go, no, they did. And I go, well, who are they? They go, I don't know. I said, do I know him? He goes, no. They're passing it forward. You know, when I walked into your house, other than noticing your pirate bar and your sports room we're in, I met your videographer.
Right.
Already an amazing energy.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as I met him, I was like, when I went up and shook his hand, the way he came up, the way he looked me in my eyes, and I was going like, this guy's got it. This guy's got that. And then I was talking to him about it, what he does. And he goes, and I said, I want your card.
Right.
I like his vibration. I think this is somebody that could do it. So you do this all day, and you feel the vibration. When you work in physical therapy with your companies and you're going around, you're dealing with people in pain. They're hurting. When I deal with people, they're in grief and trauma. I have to be at the best vibration I can be. And sometimes that means saying no. Sometimes it means going away and spending some time alone, refurbishing my spirit. But I have to tell you, when you get in touch with this, I think it's the key. And if we could help people learn this art, the art of living in the present moment, we're there.
That's where we
need
one of my
to be.
jokes is, this is my watch, right? This little
I
piece
love
of metal.
you showed me that. I love that. I'm
And
just looking for it online.
So it's like now, and it's a Jimmy Buffett song, and it's like he bought a watch, and it just says now. So I didn't want the watch to say it.
If we could just, all we have is this moment.
And it's my reminder, because of my brain, and because of the number of things, that, hang on, it's just now. Let's just, what do you do right now? And what can you do that makes the most impact?
Well, it's the same thing with our past. You know, I heard confessions for 30-some years. You know, people feel guilty about things they did years ago, and I get it. And guilt can be a way to unleash and get rid of. But eventually you got to let go what you did yesterday, because it does you no good. And you can't look so far ahead that you're stressed and worried, because it may never come. So when you stay and say, now, I'm here right now. I'm enjoying a conversation with a friend right now. I have other things to do today. My brain every once in a while clicks in, and then I'm going, stop it, I'm enjoying this.
Exactly.
Come back to that moment. They say, when you look to the past and you look back, I said, you couldn't drive your car looking in a rearview mirror. You're going to kill people. You can glance at the past. You can remember memories. but you always have to bring it to the present, because the past was present at one time.
Right.
And then you can say, I have dreams and goals. I want a nice home, or I want this and this. They're great, but if you live in the present and you do your best to be your best, it will all happen.
Yeah.
It'll happen.
Yeah, I think the missing step, like I hear people all the time say, oh, I have these dreams, or I want to do this, or I've been praying about this. And my response to them is usually like, okay, but the next step is the law of right action. You actually have to move towards it.
You have to move it.
You have to do something. And it's just like, okay, great. I'm a believer in prayer. But if all you're doing is praying and...
There's a great story about that of a man, and they warned his town that a big flood was coming and everybody needed to evacuate. And he wouldn't move. And he said, no, I trust God. He's the Lord of my life. He's not going to let anything happen. And the waters come in and it raises to the next level. Now he's in the second level of his house. And neighbors come by on a boat. Hey, come on, we're here. Get in. No, God will save me. His prayer. He's going to take care of me. Now he's on the roof. A helicopter comes. Come, get on. No, God's going to save me. I don't have to worry. And then he drowns and dies. He goes to heaven and he goes, Lord, I'm faithful. I prayed. Why didn't you do anything? He said, I sent a car, I sent a boat, I sent a helicopter. You got to move. You got to do something from your part. Right.
Put something in action.
Exactly.
Like, you can't be like, oh, it's just this one thing.
No.
And it's funny because people ask, and like the stuff I get involved in, like, how do you get all this stuff done? And I know the projects that you work on too. It's like, because I look at them in short-term spurts, right? I don't start a business. Anything I start is like, I don't want to manage this, right? I want to create it, but I want to replace myself so that I can move on, because I know what I'm good at is creativity. I'm a horrible manager. Like,
You see, but you know.
Right.
And I know, for example, when you have a church, finances are always an issue. I've always been able, but it's not me coaxing people in to give money for projects. It was always having them involved and having them see what they built, what they did. And we built multiple things to help things.
Amazing.
But with the idea that, same with me, is my thing is, I'll raise it, I got an idea. Somebody else has to be the creator to say, this is what it should look like.
Right.
I just know, guess what? We need a gym, a youth center. We need that. And look at, we could do programs for the neighborhood. And we raised, I think, $5-6 million in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I was like,
beautiful
and we
center.
built it.
Yeah.
But you got to have the vision, the plan, and you know what your gifts are. You know, my gift isn't saying, well, we need to have, it needs to be this big, and I have no, God would never have called me to build Noah's Ark.
Right.
He would have said to me, you need a boat, and you need money and materials. Craig, get it. Let him build the boat. So I think we need to know, and I believe with you short term. What's my goal for raising money for this, from this to this? Who do I need to talk to, be with? I have to believe in what I'm doing.
Right.
Too many people, people think they should love their job. I don't know if I buy that philosophy. I work to have the lifestyle and be able to do the things I do. I have moments of my job I love. I love when I help people make connections. I help when I help people let go of crap. I love all that. But there are other times, there's other things I'd like to be doing at 65.
Right. Yeah.
And so when I travel, when I do that. And I go, that's my job. I make my money. I pay my bills. I'm able to do the things I want. But I was listening to a seminar the other day on YouTube, and this guy all he kept saying is, you have to love what you do. And if you don't love what you do, go do something else. I'm going, maybe it's not the right place.
Right.
But there's a process in that. Because you're never going to probably find a job that you're going to love, even if you're at the top.
Yeah, not every day.
No, not every day. Sometimes it's a gruel.
And I think that's what people lose track of, is the ebbs and flows. But one of the things, because you hit on one of my favorite things, is connection, right? So I think that the more we're authentically ourselves, it's like the thing about telling a lie, right? If you tell the truth, you don't have to worry about remembering it.
Right.
If you tell a lie, you got to remember what lie you told to who, so you keep that lie going. And I think that's how we got to treat life. So if you're authentically you, then I don't need to worry about.
And it goes back to
How to
the
show
very
up.
first thing you said when we sat down and you started talking. You said, who am I? So the authentic me, there's layers, because we as children, our parents lied to us from the day we were born. Oh, there's a tooth fairy. There's a Santa. There's a, and we buy it, and then we go, oh, no.
If you make that face, it'll stick like it.
Right. Oh, yeah. If you hold that cup and suck it in, it's never
you're
come
going to be deformed.
So, all these things. And then we go to school, and teachers are telling us what to think, what to believe, what to do. And I love the teaching profession. I was a teacher. My parents were teachers. But people can teach things that we don't want our kids to do.
Right.
We teach our kids at a young age, you learn how to deal with stress from your parents. And guess what? Not all of them deal with things. Then as adults, you go to college. You want to get an A on your exam, you got to tell the professor what they want versus what you may think. So all that. And then as you get older, you hit that 40 midlife, then you start going, wait a minute, what's true?
Right.
And maybe in second grade, I wasn't good at math, and the teacher told me, you're not good at math, you'll never be good at math. And I believed that, but then later on, I had a teacher who said, you're great at math, and then I'm in math. So we listen to those voices, and then after about 35, 40, we start saying, wait a minute, that's not always true.
Right.
So who am I? And who am I? What authentic being am I? And then that's where you radiate to me, the vibration,
that
the
radiance
attraction.
comes out. And when you're talking about Mo, that's the thing I picked up on too. When I first met Mo, it was like, all right, something about this guy's energy. So I always think about when I'm doing projects, it's the who, not the how. So your point of, okay, I want to build this building. I'm not going to go to school and learn how to build buildings. But I'm going to connect to, okay, who do I know that's really good at this?
And I want people on my team that can be creative and say, I got another idea. We were going to go hey, we never thought of that. Great. That's wonderful. And that vibration that Mo gives off, the vibration you give off, can you imagine in a world if everybody was giving off a positive vibration? Jesus gave a positive vibration to 12. It didn't work with one.
Right.
But then those 12...
11 out of 12 is pretty good.
Yeah. And then those 12 what gave, and this. But then what we've done with it, even religion can be a negative thing, a controlling thing, and all that. So we have to always go back to the original is, what's my connection? What's my connection to God? What's my connection to my family? What's my connection to the universe, to the people? And then to me, life takes off. And it gets, you look for, you know things are going to happen. You almost look forward to them to see how you react.
Right.
Wow, I reacted really well to that today.
And when you can catch yourself, and that's with increased consciousness and now being in the
Forefront.
a peaceful, loving relationship, I still have the PTSD pops up. Like something, a look or
a tone in the voice.
Tone in the voice, like, uh-oh, what did I just do?
Yeah.
But we have those little, like, between Wendy and I, we have our little, like catchphrases, right? Like, and if I catch myself doing it, I'll be like, hey, sorry, PTSD, like.
But it's real.
Oh, yeah.
And the triggers come. But when you work on consciousness, mindfulness, when you work on being in the present, when you work on your spiritual life, you know what happens is you begin to catch it earlier.
Right.
And then you acknowledge it too. Like you said, hey, you know what? When you said that, I triggered this. I don't want to do that. First of all, I'm sorry I did that. And you know what? I can work on that. Right. And let me know when I do that.
Right. And have it both ways too. Where she'll do
always...
it too. She'll be like, hey, are you mad at me about something? I'm like, no, where'd you get that from?
Well, and you could be distracted. Your mind could be on something that has nothing to, and then this, and I bring in like texting. That's why I hate texting unless it's information. Right. Text me, we need milk at home. Text me, we're meeting at 4:30. Right. Don't text me your emotion. Did I hurt you? No, because you can't. You got to feel the vibration of that energy.
Yeah, and I think that's a concern I see, especially in the digital age and kids with phones and stuff, is there's, and Zoom. Zoom drove me crazy during the COVID thing. And the people that stay on it, it's like, there's just not, and I hadn't thought about it, so you said it, but it is that vibration, right? There's no vibration coming through my computer screen.
No, vibration, the vibration goes so far out.
Right.
So I can feel yours right here. Mo's way over there, and I can feel his over here.
He's up, Mo. Back,
Yeah.
back your vibration up, brother.
You're shaking me up, Mo. You're shaking me up. But I really, I think that comes back to that of getting to know self and getting to let go of behaviors that we have created within ourselves, thoughts, beliefs that we have created within ourselves, and say to ourselves sometimes, what do I really believe about that? What do I really believe about God? What do I really believe about marriage, relationship? And as you ask those deeper questions, and you do it within the context of connection, being in a group, it bounces. You know, I just read a book, it's amazing, about cathedrals. I've been sharing this with some of my friends. The original cathedrals built, if you've ever gone to those first, centuries, they really weren't built for people to come and sit and be congregations. They were built with vibration, that when you went in there, the sound would vibrate. The suffragio frequencies, it would line you up. The Hindus call it the chakras. It lines you up to God. So when you would go in there, the space itself vibrated. The windows in those churches were made by the frequencies where they would hold it over. If you hold a tuning fork over water, it will make a geometric design. And that's the design in all the cathedrals. Oh, wow. The bells in all the cathedrals, when they ring, they're set at like 417 or something hertz. And when they vibrate, it was a healing. So what did Hitler do when he invaded? First thing he did in everything was take the bells out. So people would not experience, because you want to control the mind, and then he would drive around in vehicles with sounds and to disrupt their way of living. They would hear that sound and it would make them antsy, versus the church bells, which would calm them. They would hear that, then he could control them. I mean, it's a fascinating thing that vibration and frequencies have been around since the Egyptians. Right. So now it seems like we're talking about it as people, consciousness, mindfulness, and I think it gets exciting.
I think the interesting part of bringing that up is like, the more like curious you are to learn where things started. So like the Fibonacci sequence.
Exactly.
And then we listened to a podcast or a audio book on Da Vinci, and because he was into nature and science, but he just dabbled in a little bit of everything. But he was the forebearer for a ton of stuff. He had real bad ADHD because he never finished any of his works, right?
He had issues. He had issues. But even his brilliance at that time still affects our world. Einstein talks about these frequency and vibration. So to me, in our world, we can create a positive vibration. I always hate election time because I feel it brings a very negative. Everybody fights and argues. And I'm going, wouldn't it be nice if two people running for office would sit there and say kind things about each other and talk about how they want to do this? I mean, I'd vote for them in a minute. Instead, it's, let me tell you the trash on the other one and how bad everything is. I'll make it better. Right. No, you won't. We as a world will make it better. When we get tired, as you said at the beginning, of living down here, the Renaissance.
I think you're starting to feel that shift, right?
Oh, I do. I feel it.
Like, and I equate it, like some of the new music coming out, to the hippie generation of the 70s, right? There was this movement of people that said, hey, this isn't right. The war is not right, but we're going to do it through peace, and we're going to do it, and it's going to come out in our music, and it's going to come out in our poetry and our art. I feel that happening now, but on the other end of the spectrum, that people that have a certain, hey, wait a minute, like, and I know you feel this way too, that you don't hate anybody because of who they love. You don't hate anybody, but you can just acknowledge that sometimes you're going too far.
Oh, like yeah,
what
definitely.
You're teaching in schools, like, hey, hang on, this doesn't belong here.
Right.
So I think it's just that curiosity, that understanding, and that the continual growth of the individual. I think one of the things that's missing is the ability to have conversations with people.
I have 3 clients, no experience at all have I had. Most of my experience in certifications are grief and trauma, but I have 3 transgendering people. I don't get it, but I'm learning so much from them and their trial, what they're learning and doing that. And I said to myself, I need that sometimes. I can't just be set with what I'm comfortable. I got to go outside my comfort. And I told them, I said, you know, I have no experience, no. But they said, but we feel good talking to you. And I said, good, then we do it. But I feel that my vibration, my frequency is getting stronger because, again, I'm learning about something I don't know about.
Right. And that's the key, right?
That's the growth.
Instead of being like, no, I don't want to have any conversations because I've already in my head decided that
I've made my,
you're a bad
I've
person.
judged you and.
Yeah, and the judgment thing gets in. I think, let's go back to teachers for a second because I know it's a lot of teachers. And there's an underlying crisis coming with teachers that they're getting burned out because there's discipline's been removed out of schools. And just what's being heaped on them, and at the same time, it's like, all right, who's supporting? And then who's supporting principals?
Oh yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. I have a number of clients who are teachers, and you know what they have to deal with today is so different. They're being parent because half these kids aren't being parented. They're law enforcement because half these kids, and they really don't have the support. The really good teachers, you know what they're doing? They're leaving and going into something else because they find that they're being negative because they're being overwhelmed. And I feel the education system will probably end up one day just being on Zoom. And what the kids are going to miss out is on that creative energy of being together in a class. They're going to isolate. We're going to have more suicides, more depression, as we did during COVID. It's going to be the same kind of thing.
Yeah, because once you take that away, you take that human connection away, it's not the same. We talk about it in all the business groups I do, like the remote work agreements. And I get it. I mean, I work remote most of the time from here. But you've got to have that human connection piece too.
I think you can. I do Zoom with some clients, but I insist that every so often, some live out of state, that they have to come down, and we spend like 2 days. They need to have the connection so that we can carry it through. I'm not a big fan of Zoom at all. Even with my grandkids, the ones that are away at college or this, I like to FaceTime them.
FaceTime them, yeah.
Just seeing them helps me, but it's not the same as when they come up, hey, Papa, and give you a hug and do that. So,
it's the greatest thing.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's an instant, like Mo and I were talking about earlier, like, hey, because Mo's got 10-month-old, Mo? So we were talking about the difference of being a parent and a grandparent. I said, oh man, grandparents are the greatest thing in the world. Because you do it, you spoil it.
I'd take that 10-month-old, I'd be holding loving on it, and it would poop, and I'm like, here,
there you go,
yeah.
Dad, do you want to change the diaper? No, I'm good.
But you're right, and as we grow older, we become more aware of this. I think that's why it's great that people, how old are you now?
58.
Yeah, I've got 3 children, almost your age. But as we hit this stage and age in our life, we have to be able to share what we're learning because it's not being taught anywhere. And that's, to me, the benefit of doing even this. Somebody might see this and go, wow, I want to learn more about this part. Because we're not saying our life has been easy and good. It hasn't been.
Far from it, yeah.
But we work through the pain, we work through the loss, we work through the grief. I'm not done. I still get triggers, but now mentally I understand them better. So they come in and I figure out where I'm going to put them, send them up to the hippocampus, get them out of my prefrontal cortex, get them up there, all the brain stuff, and go, Craig, you're okay. Today, that was then.
Right.
Come back to now.
Don't let it slip
back.
back.
I love your watch now.
Yeah.
What time is it? It's now.
It's now.
And I'm doing what I need to do now.
Yeah. And when I get to the next place, and I think those little reminders are awesome. Just whatever it happens to be that triggers you.
This band, I go to Assisi, Italy. I've been going for over 50 years. And I got this band when I was 17. Now the store, I go in and I get new leather bands, but the cross is the same one. I can't believe I haven't lost it in all these years. But the symbolism to me is when I go to Assisi, within minutes, I'm like in a vortex of, wow, peace, calm. Doesn't matter what's going on in my life. And I'm going back in May and June. But it's a reminder. I love it. You got a bunch of them. I bet every one of them has some symbolism.
Yeah, that's what. So it's my granddaughter, my grandson, and then this one's all my family.
Well, I have the one you have with the little ones with all 8 of my kids.
Right.
But I'm not going to wear 19 bracelets for my grandkids.
Yeah, I think
I'll be like Mo.
we got a couple more coming, so I got to get rid of these and go back to just all the grandkids.
Exactly.
A little too many.
Life changes. Life changes.
It's like, what are you trying to? No, it's like, and it's funny because I did the same thing with this house when I first moved in. Right. I said, you know what? Everything in here I want to mean something to me. So, like, we walked around. I showed you some of the stuff, and it's like, well, this is what this means to me.
You need to take people on a virtual tour because I haven't been in a house where I go in and there's a bar and I'm thinking, oh, it's pirate themed, and then I'm sitting here with games, a room, all this sports memorabilia, and then you go outside and he's got it's a sunken. I'm telling you, this is Pirates of the Caribbean on steroids. You got to see the bar, and then you go up and the grandkids' room. It's Disney, and so, you were able to express. And when I came here, the vibration I felt was, I want to see it, and I can imagine that when you bring people here, and that it's your expression. You even said to me, Wendy's not really fond of all these skulls and stuff I have, and I thought, that's good because that gives you that balance, that yin yang of doing it. But it's an amazing place. You really, Mo, you got to take him around with the camera and go, look at this.
Explain all the
awesome.
craziness. And that was the whole, because I had done the thing in our previous house that my kids grew up in. And one of the things, 2 things that bugged me about it. One was there was no view out of the backyard. It was just fences and rooftops. So, and having grown up in Montana, I need to see. And nobody understood that. I'm like, I need to be able to see. I can't be in a yard that's 15 feet, a fence, and then there's just rooftops. I can't see mountains. I can't see anything. So I wanted a vision and then meaning. I didn't want to bring in the interior decorator to design it. Okay, that's what you like. And then you ask me, well, do you like this or this painting or this painting? It's like, none of them, because they don't mean anything. Oh, it looks good, but it doesn't, when I look at it, I don't feel like, oh, that reminds me of,
No, but see, this house has emotion, vibration, and I had a client that I had to go to their home because he broke his leg, and so seeing them as a couple, and I go in their living room, and you would have just laughed. Everything in the house could have been out of Architectural Digest. There's no fun in it. It's just it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But it's stark, minimalist, except for in the living room. His chair is a beat up leather thing, like it doesn't fit. And she goes, when he's dead, it's the first thing going. I mean, and I told him, be careful what you drink, because
exactly.
she wants that chair out. But it was that contrast of he got one thing in this house, piece, and it doesn't fit in anything. And I guess when they have parties, she has it put in the garage. Because she doesn't want people to see it. But he was sitting in that chair very comfortable.
Just like, I'm at home. This is my peaceful spot. Leave me alone. Don't mess with this. And I think, we've talked a little bit about marriage, and you had an interesting, I heard you talk one time about doing the pre-marriage counseling and how they're oozing with love. And I think we set up bad expectations, right? Oh, you're going to get married. Process. You're going to be, and we're never going to fight. We're just going to be in love forever, and within how many months?
And don't forget, you're changing every day.
Right.
The person you marry, they're not the same person. They're not after they have 1 kid, 2 kids. You change. the energy, but that love that puts out all of that at the beginning. I actually always preferred to do a second marriage or third. The second marriage for some people is just kind of a rebound and too quick. But even the third, because I always felt that by now you know yourself better.
Right.
And what you're bringing to the table is more authentic. It has a better chance to work. I also believe, and having never been married, is that change that's happening all the time. For example, marriage prep for a couple getting married in the church was go to a retreat for a weekend or this. You want to become a priest, you go to 5 years. 5 years that you're being psychologically evaluated, spiritual direction, classes. You're evaluated constantly. And then they say, you can become a priest. We're going to ordain you. And it's a permanent bond. We say in the church, you go as a couple for a weekend, boom. Yeah. It's eternal.
Yeah, this is a vow forever till death do us part.
That's why they have annulments.
Yeah,
exactly. But the reality of it is there is no preparation for marriage. Right. You can work on communication skills with people, but you don't know. Let's say you get married and 4 years later you're taking care of your mom and dad because they're elderly and dying. It changes you. And maybe the spouse doesn't. That cycle of life, you might be here, they're here.
Right.
And what happens when we let it get bad and we don't stay connected, we both end up here. And then we say, we got to go our own ways. And you get up here and you go, boom, good.
I think there's a Chris Stapleton song called Either Way, right?
Yeah.
And when I first heard it, I was like, man, what a sad statement of the number of people that live in that environment. That's just pure negativity, right? Like, stay or go, it doesn't matter.
But either way, well, I call them marriages of tolerance. Right. We've tolerated each other so long. You know, when you said that, I realized what this house doesn't have yet. A music room. Because you like music. You tell me all the time, you say songs and this. And I go, we have a movie room. Yeah. We have all that, but we don't have okay, you're going to have to add on.
Hey, Wendy, looks like we got a karaoke station coming.
That pirate bar is going to be converted.
Pirate karaoke. Everybody sign up. Yeah, no, there's always music. Mo and I were laughing about it because I don't like quiet.
That's the brain.
It's my brain, right? So I always like music on. Because when it's quiet, then my brain's like, oh, let's fill it up with stuff. And then, depending on your mood, I think music's amazing in how it can change or remind you. That's one of the things I love about it is just like seeing something that triggers a number of songs that I hear that will trigger a memory from childhood or just random crap that I don't think about. Like, oh, this song played when I was riding the back seat of the station wagon and my parents had the 8-track in. Like, and that's my thought. Or an artist that's like, oh, that was my mom's favorite
But look
song.
at that stimulation to your brain. For me, I like complete silence. I like to hear the sound of nothing. And when you quiet yourself down and you get in that state, all of a sudden you can hear things. Oh, I never heard that bird. I never heard those leaves rustling in the wind. And we do that. But we have different brains. Everybody has different brains. So you got to find the thing. Gregorian chant is a music. It's a church music. Yeah, right. And you know how that was just created? A monk, and I think it was the 11th century, he took those equations of the frequencies and he put them to music. And they're the frequencies. And when you listen to it, what it's supposed to do is hearing those tones to move your body into sync, in line with God. So today's music, many of them are finding that the frequencies that bring people to peace and that, they're putting it in their music. Right. And the ones that they're finding that some of those things that irritate people, people will rock out to AC/DC at workout because you want that thing. But you don't want that when you're driving or you're relaxing.
All amped up.
Yeah.
Then it leads to road rage.
That's why I only have 3 albums. I have Carole King, James Taylor, and Best of Bread.
Oh, nice. All mellow.
I'm stuck in that genre.